Hello and welcome to my third tour on the third strategy that I came up with. This one is called the double take. Now, what are the correct characteristics of the double take? So basically, the double take is subverting familiar places or objects to sort of get a second glance from the viewer in order to communicate a message or just to draw their attention. Now, once again, here are the things that the street artists typically subvert. So familiar places, familiar object, familiar surroundings, and familiar sayings. So this piece in particular is by popular street artist Colette Abraham. Now, Colette Abraham's main source of inspiration is from street signs and really just any signs that have authority over us and dictate what we do. And Colette likes to subvert these signs because he really wants to give them a second meaning, because he really wants to put in question the authority that we just blindly follow. So the message that Colette is trying to communicate in this specific piece is quite controversial, as this is actually on a dead end sign, and we see here depicted a picture of somebody crucified, probably making reference to Jesus Christ and Christianity, and Colette is trying to pass some sort of message, which can be viewed in many different ways. However, it is quite controversial to put this religious figure on a dead end sign. Now, this specific street sign was found when I was walking around the 18th arrondissement, specifically in the Montmartre area. So these are quite hard to miss, as when you're walking by, you may take a glimpse of a street sign and you'll look back and there it is subverted with a different meaning, which is exactly Colette's goal. And these signs can be seen all over Paris. I've seen examples in the 16th, the 13th, as well as the 5th. And yeah, this really just sort of speaks to the amount of effort that Colette has put into communicating his message. And I actually attempted to arrange an interview with this street artist, Colette, and I'm still awaiting his response. However, he did respond to the first couple of my emails. But as we were able to see, he's very busy, which does speak to his level of notoriety, and also sort of speaks to the progression that street art has had. So street art basically went from being barely acknowledged as a form of art and mainly viewed as vandalism to street artists being fully booked and extremely busy. So jumping to the 13th arrondissement, here we're able to see another piece by Colette Abraham. As I said, he has different pieces around Paris. However, I found a lot of them on Place Code Bourdet. And so this specific piece is of a sumo wrestler. And now we can see Colette Abraham sort of trying to use comedy in order to sort of question the authority of this sign and to sort of be like, oh, like basically if a sumo wrestler just came in and took away this part of the sign, you wouldn't be able to follow it anymore. And now it's sort of using this comedy to once again question why we just blindly follow these street signs, and how if even a sumo wrestler was just put on here, it would take away the meaning and people would no longer follow it. Now, I really felt that this was classified into strategy number 3, as though this is actually subverting a street sign. So I went to Colette's Facebook in order to gain sort of a deeper understanding of the message, and he stated that this was supposed to demonstrate consumption without conscience. Now, upon further analysis, I'm able to see the why this message would be clear in this piece, because obviously we're able to see fire, which consumes, and so it's obviously consuming the street sign. And consumption without conscience is really referring to our society, who just consumes and consumes and consumes. This could be referring to the Earth's natural resources, using up fossil fuels, how we just consume without conscience. And that's trying to be portrayed through this street sign. And yeah, obviously this piece is up for interpretation. This is how I personally interpret it and how Colette interprets it. So not too far from the previous street signs, here we have En Rue Butogai, this piece by Carol Bicoulage. Now, in person, this is actually a very big stencil. It's quite large scale. Now, this is a very interesting example of strategy number 3 in place. So we see the French national motto, which is Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité. However, it's subverted into Liberté, Égalité, Féminité. Now, this is supposed to portray sort of a feminist message, and Liberté, Égalité, Fraternité is sort of a very uplifting and very revolutionary type of phrase. And so to put féminité inside is really just sort of like uplifting women and empowering them, which is similar to what another street artist does, C plus S, in which he includes Marianne stamps in his work in order to empower women. Now, this is very similar as it also has underlying tones of patriotism. And so here we also see a relation to strategy number 2 with the use of a cultural icon with Josephine Baker over here in the first picture. And so I felt as though this really classified into strategy number 3 as it's subverting a phrase that we're so used to seeing and understanding as French people. Now, once again, here's another example of Clet Abraham's pieces. So here we're able to see this figure being depicted carrying away the street sign. Now, this is once again sort of mocking the way that we blindly follow without judgment these street signs, because if someone were to take it away, it would have no meaning and we wouldn't follow it. And so this is once again just questioning authority, it's a very popular theme that Clet really tries to follow and portray in all of his work. Now, the previous examples that I was mentioning with Clet, they were all in the 13th arrondissement and in the 18th, except here we're able to also see his work in the 16th, specifically on Avenue Président Wilson, and another example on Pont Diana, which is a very, very popular location. So here we have yet another Clet Abraham piece. So here we've got sort of an inspirational message. No, this one is not too much a social criticism, but almost a more uplifting type of piece. So here we've got Céder le passage, and on top we've got Los Revos, which translates to dreams. Basically, the message that Clet is trying to communicate in this is that we have to actually follow our dreams and stop what we're doing to let our dreams sort of lead the way and pass. And this is a really good message, and it obviously falls into strategy number 3 as it's, once again, subverting these street signs in order to give them a second message. Now, not too far from the 13th, we've got the 5th arrondissement, specifically on Rue Mouffetard. Now, this piece by Words by Wabi Sabi is put on the entrance to some sort of an alleyway, if you want to see it. And so Wabi Sabi does make these little pieces, and he puts them around everywhere, and a lot of them seem to have this sort of message encoded about love. And so, as you can see here, the word amour is mentioned, which is the translation of love in French. And we're able to see the use of strategy number 3 in this by them subverting Scrabble pieces. So Scrabble pieces, you'd usually expect to see them in the Scrabble game, maybe lying around your house, but never on a wall. And so we're completely subverting them by putting them on this wall. And that's the complete use of strategy number 3, because now, seeing that it's on a wall, there's going to be a double take. People are going to look at it twice. So for this specific piece by Dieja Luz, I decided to categorize this into my third strategy, which is subverting everyday objects in order to communicate a message. And so I felt that this really was a perfect example of this, as living in a city so densely populated with pigeons as Paris, we've really grown accustomed to them that we don't even look at them anymore. And this is the main reason why this street artist decided to use pigeons in his work. Dieja Luz is really trying to communicate a message about our society and the amount of surveillance that happens without us really knowing or paying attention to it. So here we see two aspects that we see all the time on the road and streets, which are cameras and pigeons. And so he really combines them both in order to spread a message. And so this theme is really present in the rest of his work, as he really takes inspiration from a Big Brother and sort of like a dystopian surveillance type of society. And those are his concerns, which he expresses through his artwork. And so the specific example is more of a large-scale version of the Pidgicams. Most of them are very small and almost security camera size. And so this one specifically is located in Butokai in the 13th arrondissement. But there are actually a lot of Pidgicams diffused throughout the 13th arrondissement, but there are also other examples in other arrondissements. Now, the whole theme of observation and this Big Brother dystopian sort of reality that DJ Luz is trying to put us into is really reinforced by the numerous pigeons that are actually in this neighborhood. So here we have just 3 examples. However, I saw possibly 5 just in the 13th arrondissement, and this is quite a big concentration for one type. So now going back to 13th arrondissement, specifically on Rue du Moulin des Prés, we'll be able to see this piece by Nous Toutes. Now, Nous Toutes is a feminist activist group that's committed to stopping feminicides as well as sexual harassment. And so Nous Toutes held a street activism initiative in which they placed these sort of signs. However, since they conducted a study stating that only 2% of these signs in Paris were named after women, because there are a very high concentration of street signs named after males, specifically males with accomplishments, males who have who have done something. And so Nutut concluded that they should also be able to put women up and commemorate their achievements. So this is an example of a Romanian neurosurgeon being commemorated. And so, in addition to commemorating women's achievements, they've also commemorated feminicide victims. So here we've got Rue Sylvie, 58 ans, killed by her ex. And so this is sort of to memorialize these women who have faced such awful things. Also, we're able to see a difference in formality. From here, we've got the woman's full name. Here, we've got Rue Sylvie, just Sylvie, because I feel that they probably chose this to sort of make it seem a lot more personal and intimate to the viewer, because Sylvie could just be your neighbor Sylvie, it could be your mother's friend Sylvie, it could just be any Sylvie, which is really the message that they're trying to communicate, that it happens to many women. It could be all women. And so yeah, this their main goal was to raise awareness and to sort of commemorate these pieces to not only women with achievements deserving recognition, but also to these victims of feminicides. So as for this last piece on my tour, we've got a piece by The Invader, which I've spoken about in previous tours. So The Invader is a very, very famous street artist who has gained a lot of traction and notoriety for his little Space Invader mosaics. And so for this specific example, this is not a Space Invader, but it's using the same style and the same technique of mosaic. And so as we're able to see, this is subverting the street sign. So we've got Rue du Dragon, and under is a dragon. And so there is no clear message in this piece. However, through my interview with the street artist, I found that not all street art necessarily has to have a message, but a lot of the times it's just to sort of, once again, relating to my third strategy, provoke a second look. Because normally, there's so many street signs around us, and we wouldn't pay attention to them. Especially this one, Rue du Dragon. That's quite an interesting name. We wouldn't really see that anywhere. But we wouldn't be able to look at it if there wasn't this dragon underneath it, which actually provokes the viewer to look at it again and think, oh wow, like Rue du Dragon, that's quite an interesting name. And so this is similar to G-Zup's technique, where he really wants people to get off his phone and look around at their surroundings. And we're able to see that Invader shares a similar goal. So that concludes my third street art tour. If you have any questions concerning any of the pieces that I've curated, or just any questions in general about street art, don't hesitate to contact me. This is my school email right here, and thank you for watching.